A legal battle is brewing within the courts over the BNI's arrest of former Bufferstock CEO Hanan. Godfred, who's lawyer for Abdul-Wahab Aliduba'S, says he will cite the Attorney General's office and the Bureau of National Investigation for contempt after he was arrested, denying him the chance to attend medical treatment in the UK after a court had granted him leave to do so. Now, according to the AG, the arrest is justified by the attempt by Hanan to empty his frozen account, an allegation which has been vehemently opposed by Dame. The legal battle, a direct gauntlet to the current AG to prove attempts of a withdrawal by Hanan.
Your United Fonsa Atse, Zoro Kodo, former Attorney General Godfred Dame Yabua, Oni, the current Attorney General, Enya fights. Enya no butu Sunday on Saturday. Oye ne clients Hanan, Abdul-Wahab, Aduliba, Rutukwan Akko, Oye United Kingdom. Ama BNI, the Attorney General, one stratma. BNI, National Security, was stop and now watching. Oye Hanan, Abdul-Wahab Adiluba wo Accra International Airport. No ono and the former Attorney General Godfred Dame Ontasi. Mo onye the current Attorney General Inyamina support. No ono and no quarrying yezer bro. Yes, yizin kan ya actually hinajun kakra. Yes, courts and ama yonyinya some na some quarter na wamane tum krata do tum tukon onko hwehwe na pom onko jayaresa wa brochir sabio sabi yeda ho ama mame ationu sedinam tamaklo MPP abrodo wo mana akonye de onko jayaresa wo abrochimane mu okoya wamba it took this country to extradite kanoforiata a Ghana do sumbo abone day katasihye proanyi kankanyi nzama bi akodo bra na oye foto samfo nenen ombra no wombisa nsam kwebien bi momman ne ya no nenen ono so oze yereba sam na ozo ko US ende aka ne to atwem de omba Ghana enti ibisre de oye nyina timbuafo no nso hot onhwe da menzama no mu titsir samanyofo ananyipa no wa case wo courta wobama no kwendo onko abrochi onko sano ho yaraba nenen sabio ye besre so beya enkanyanen oye atembua nenen so onhwe dam permission na akonya na aboze madam nkrofo nenen aya sabia ho wo Ghana Hanan sabio ontum nhwe wan oye nie ya enkontum nhwe wana yabasre yankwane nkete asampocha okodo nun.
A legal battle is brewing within the courts over the BNI's arrest of former Bufferstock CEO Hanan. Godfred, who's lawyer for Abdul-Wahab Aliduba'S, says he will cite the Attorney General's office and the Bureau of National Investigation for contempt after he was arrested, denying him the chance to attend medical treatment in the UK after a court had granted him leave to do so. Now, according to the AG, the arrest is justified by the attempt by Hanan to empty his frozen account, an allegation which has been vehemently opposed by Dame. The legal battle, a direct gauntlet to the current AG to prove attempts of a withdrawal by Hanan. Now let's show you a bit more from this. There's a bit more to this issue in regards to what we heard from the AG's office, the response, and then where we are today. What are we learning?
So, like you mentioned, it's been quite a back and forth from this weekend as to the basis for his arrest and whether or not it is justified. That's the argument which is being made, and that is what the former Attorney General says he's taken to the court, citing for contempt, also arguing, amongst many other things, abuse of his rights. That's the rights of his client. And so we start off from the case which Mr. Hanan and his wife are answering for. Now, in that case, he sought leave of the court to, amongst many other things, seek medical treatment in London. Now, we woke up to this particular post from the Attorney General seeking to explain that an arrest had been made and providing the justification for it. Now, this in verbatim, this is what the Deputy Attorney General says, that Mr. Aliduba'S, who is currently standing trial for stealing and causing financial loss to the Republic, was granted leave by the High Court to travel to the United Kingdom for a few days in search of that medical treatment. Now, the Attorney General will on Monday seek a review of the court order granting Aliduba'S travel leave. Now, also, the additional detail is that he had been arrested pending his attempts to empty the bank accounts. Then the former Attorney General comes in pretty strongly and says that the attention has been drawn to that Facebook post purporting to justify an unlawful arrest of Abdul-Wahab despite a High Court order which was granting him the permit to travel. Now, they say that they provide a bit more in terms of details as to the reasoning of the court, who sat for the hearing, amongst many other things. And so I'm just going to skip that because that was a Court of Appeal judge sitting in a High Court who granted that request. Now, they say that the claim that their client tried to fraudulently empty his frozen account is false. They challenge the Deputy AG to prove any withdrawal since the court order, and that no valid court order currently freezes their client's account. The freeze followed his 2025 arrest, but charges were withdrawn on the 5th of May 2026, lapsing all bail and freezing orders from that case. They say, and we've been hearing, that they will file a contempt of court proceedings against the Attorney General's office and then the BNI director because they effected that arrest, amongst many other things. But we know that Mr. Hanan is on trial for a number of things: for stealing and causing financial loss to the state running into tens of millions of cedis. Also, prosecutors allege he diverted over 50 million cedis in terms of funds for the National Food Buffer Stock Company Limited through companies linked to him and his wife, with some accounts at Republic Bank's Laboni branch. Now, at the heart of this is the freeze order and the questions in relation to it as to whether or not, and if I take you back, the argument by the former Attorney General that no valid order currently freezes their client's account and that the freeze followed his 2025 arrest, but charges were withdrawn on the 5th of May. Now, we've been combing through IOCO's legislation, and sections 38 specifically speak to the freezing of assets involving a person under investigation. Now, what the legislation says, without recourse to any other court order which will set aside that freeze, suggests the freeze of the asset lasts for 12 months, pending a variation is set aside or a revocation. And he also suggests that 38(2) to be specific, B, suggests A and B, suggests that of the many things, a person who is under investigation, IOCO can move to have those assets frozen. And so it begs the question whether or not the assets continue to remain frozen, because the former AG makes the argument that per their knowledge, no court order exists. But there are others who are arguing that, look, if you look at the IOCO legislation, without recourse to any specific court order setting that aside, then the freeze order could persist. And that's one of the many legal battles which is expected to come up strongly in court. We have our men in court who are monitoring developments there for us, and we'll seek to connect with them as and when and bring you details as to exactly what's panning out at courts. But we're just going to stay in court for you a while longer as we try and connect with my colleague Lord Aliduba'S, who's been monitoring not just this case, right? Because we took you to court initially in relation to Wontumi and his plea bargain agreements. They were to return to the court for a determination as to whether or not progress had been made in that respect as well. And then we know that contempt charges like Godfred says will be slapped on the Attorney General and then the BNI for the arrest of Abdul-Wahab Aliduba'S. So two separate pending cases in court. We're seeking to establish connection with my colleague Lord Aliduba'S, who's in court for us, so that we can ascertain really the developments. But as we have it, the conversations are continuing, the questions are being asked, and the basis being suggested is that until, particularly in the case of Abdul-Wahab, who is standing trial, until a specific order comes into place, then we are at a loss as to whether or not a freeze order exists. But remember, in October was when the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayeni, announced that the assets of Abdul-Wahab and his wife had been frozen with specific reference to certain bank accounts and what others, handbags and vehicles and other assets, all frozen as part of Iyoko investigation. And I was talking to you about going to section 38 of the Iyoko Act, which speaks directly to asset freezes amongst many other things. So I'm going to take you to Lord right now, and then he will provide us with a bit more in terms of details, right? In terms of details as to developments from the Lord is our man in court. He's joining us pretty shortly, just in a tad, just a bit of technical challenges, right? In terms of being able to establish that connection with Lord Aliduba'S. But we'll seek to do that for you shortly, and then we can get a bit more in terms of details from the courtroom as well. Lord, if you can hear me, let's start off first with Wontumi, and then we come to Wahab, right? So they were to appear before the courts today and then provide updates as to where they are with respect to the plea deal. What transpired in court and what happens from here?
Right, Marina. And so like you stated, Wontumi's lawyers were supposed to meet the prosecution and then go on with the plea negotiation. Well, in court today, a principal state attorney informed the court that the plea negotiation is still ongoing, but they actually would need another adjournment. Now, notice, they were given a 30-day window to complete the negotiation. The principal state attorney indicates that so far they've exhausted about 14 days, and so they have roughly 16 days, but they are not done with the negotiation, and so they would want an adjournment in order to complete this plea bargain negotiation. So as we speak, the case has been adjourned to July 27 for them to finalize this plea negotiation between Wontumi's lawyers and then the prosecution, Marina.
And we heard from Wontumi's lawyers. What about the AG side as well? They agree with the extension. They also speak to the fact that things are proceeding as expected.
Well, they are a bit tight-lipped on that development, except to say that yes, the negotiations are still ongoing. In fact, it was the principal state attorney who asked for the adjournment in order to finalize this development, for which the Wontumi's lawyers briefly, or should I say, accepted or admitted and affirmed to the court that yes, that is where they are with the case. Like you heard, and the appeal could be said that they have indeed tabled what they are expecting, and so they are still, once a better way, George Rowan, and we'll see how things will pan out once the negotiation as it's done, and then we'll know where Wontumi stands as far as the plea bargain negotiation stands.
Lord, let's switch to Abdul-Wahab, because we know that there's been quite the development from this weekend. His arrest and allegations of not being able to get access to him by his lawyers. The former Attorney General, Godfred, who is counsel for him, says that, look, he's going to file contempt charges against the AG and then the BNI in relation to his arrest. What more are we learning? Is that a case which is playing out in courts today?
So, Marina, surprisingly, that case was actually supposed to have been heard at the Specialized Courts, Criminal Court 3, presided over by Justice Ashiponga. But when we got to court today, rather it was the Kwabena Aliduba'S case, the former director of the NSB case, which was being heard. We found out that indeed the former Attorney General has filed his processes, but the Deputy Attorney General, the Attorney General, is yet to file his response to that. In fact, the Deputy Attorney General has not been in court today for all the cases that I have attended so far. It's hard to tell exactly where he is right now, but from one indication and what we have learned, the processes haven't been filed from the prosecution or the Attorney General's side, and so we are still surveying and then observing how things will pan out to see if indeed that case will even come up in court in the first place, because what we're hearing was that if anything at all, the case should have been heard in the morning, but from the morning 9:30 till now, nothing of the sort has been in court so far. I've been picking a few things that, yes, they are awaiting the filing from the prosecution or with the Deputy Attorney General's side, and then we'll see how things will pan out as far as the former NAPCO boss situation is concerned.
All right. Since you mentioned the former Signals Bureau boss case, rather, what is the update on that in terms of progress?
Well, the prosecution's fourth witness, the investigator from the Iyoko, Marshal Cromwell, he completed his evidence in chief, and so in fact, the former National Signals Bureau Director, Kwabena Aliduba'S lawyers, led by
Sati asamana okodo. The Godfred Dami Tasede wa arrest oye Hanan Abdul-Wahab Adiluba wo Accra Airport International. Bra na court amano kwane de obotum akọ UK akọje ayaresa na ono na wa fresh case a wa bada ho a no kwawin yeze bro.